is it a good idea for somebody that's going to travel in the wilderness to know first aid?
Yeah, sure. So I'll handle this one. I think it's very important for actually anybody to know first aid, CPR, those kinds of things. So it is important, especially if you're going into the remote wilderness. When you're really out there and away from society and civilization, you are your first responder. So, if an emergency happens, you need to be able to respond to it. It could be the difference between life or death of yourself and a loved one. If Dave and I are traveling, he's a good friend of mine, and he gets hurt and he can't render aid to himself, I better know what I'm doing. And it could mean the difference between life and death. If I don't know CPR, if I don't know how to stop bleeding, if he has a traumatic injury, which you might say never happens to me, but we're here to tell you that we deal with it'll never happen to me on a daily basis all around the world. And we have people that are traveling in Thailand and are walking on the street and a car veers off and hits them and they're in the hospital. So it's a really important thing, especially if you're traveling in the wilderness, to know exactly what to do in those type of events. You don't have to necessarily go to EMT school or paramedic school, but there are classes out there like wilderness first aid training, CPR classes at your local American Red Cross or American Heart Association. Those types of things are extremely important and could mean the difference between life or death.
Yeah, excellent.
If I can add to that, to reiterate what you said, I think a wilderness or first aid course, CPR class in general, is hugely beneficial to anyone. If you're going to be spending time in the wilderness, there's a lot of great wilderness first aid courses, wilderness first responder courses out there. Many different organizations have them, host them. So if going out beyond kind of that golden hour, and you spend a lot of time in the wilderness, I definitely recommend doing one that's wilderness catered, because it's gonna really identify some of those issues and concerns you might have when you're out and you have limited resources.
Right. Don't count on the people that you're with to save you. You need to count on
Unless
yourself.
It's Jeff.
Right, exactly.
You need to count on yourself and those. If you're going with a guide organization, don't just say, hey, my guide's got me if anything happens, or whatever. You should know what to do and how to protect yourself, because you don't want to be found in that situation where that person doesn't know or freaks out and has a fight or flight response and decides to run instead of respond and help.
Sure.
So you really want to make sure that you're well trained in that, or at least have the knowledge to be able to make a difference.
That's awesome. I couldn't agree more. I mean, the folks on our travel team, we've all gone through some of those wilderness first responder trainings, 3-day courses, things like that. Really opens your eyes to a lot, and I really do think that sometimes we think that that's more applicable if you really go into really deep wilderness or whatever, but the reality is even a trip to your local stream 2-3 miles or less off from the road can turn into a backcountry situation. So don't think it's just for folks that are traveling around the world and going to super remote spots, right? I mean, a situation can pop up with you or somebody you're with anytime. So